Morning everyone, welcome back to the shed. Hope you're well today. Nice overcast Friday, so I thought I'd do a quick video on the fitter that I've been building over the last few weeks. I've had a little bit of a break because I've been away to New Orleans to do a show out there. So it has been a couple of weeks since I've worked on this model, but since I've got back I've been able to put together a few more bits and pieces. So this is the result of my labours. I kind of have an almost complete model now ready to be assembled. This is pretty much everything done as far as the airframe is concerned. The only thing that needs to be dealt with now is the sanding of some of the upper surfaces and the seam along the bottom, and then it's ready to paint because I've done all of the other sub-assembly work. So far so good on this thing. It has thrown up a few little issues that I'd sort of been prepared for, but kind of glad I've seen those in action now. The first one was the fit of these outer wing panels into the fuselage. When I was gluing this thing together last night, I noticed that if I followed the kit instructions and the way that it's set up and just slotted those wings into place, they didn't really fit properly underneath. So I pulled them out and then snipped away the tabs that fit into the slots in the fuselage on both sides, and then just slid them in, and the fit was perfect. So if anybody's building this kit and you choose to build this kit, you might find that that's an easier route. All you need to do is just get a pair of side cutters, just clip off those tabs, slot it in. As it stands now, there's virtually no filling that will be needed on any part of the wing roots. Maybe a little bit of Mr. Surfacer if I feel that's needed, but beyond that the fit is pretty much perfect on there. The second thing was, as you know, I glued the whole of this fuselage together, and the only thing that was missing was a wraparound section on the upper spine here. It wraps over the top of the fuselage and joins this vented area on the tail fin and the front section of the spine here. I noticed that when I went to put that on yesterday that it was actually slightly too long, not even half a mil, but enough to foul that kind of fit. Also, it has kind of tabs that fit inside the spine on each side, so all I did is I shaved those off with a scalpel, sanded each end very slightly, both on the spine that was already in place on the fuselage and also on the other piece, and then just dropped it in. As it stands at the moment, it will need some slight remedial work on here. There is a step, very slight step there, that's going to need to be filled, and also along the lower edge. I think some Mr. Surfacer will need to be put into that. But other than that, it's pretty much good to go. It'll take half an hour today just to sand this down and check for any flaws. Second thing, cockpit in this is really nice. I followed the instructions to the letter and glued everything together as they instructed, and then painted it in kind of a mid-grey colour. Detail's really nice, I have to say. I've not added anything into this, and it's pretty complex in there now. I've not glued in the instrument panel or the coaming. I'll put those in towards the end of the build. Those can sort of naturally slot into place. The cockpit's not glued in this. It's design that holds that in place. The only thing that is glued in is the nose gear bay. That's in place, and then all I did was I just sat the cockpit on top and then trapped it together with the fuselage shards. So as it stands, it's loose in there in terms of glue, but it's not going anywhere. It's not going to move. The next thing was something I discussed in an earlier video, and that was the shot cone for the radar. And inside the intake, as it's moulded in the kit, the bullet is like kind of almost free floating. It's got pins and slots inside the nose that hold the bullet in place, but there should be, above and below that, there should be triangular sections that split the air around that bullet and then into the tunnel that runs through to the front face of the engine. those pieces are missing off the kit, and so I'd discussed whether or not I would change the part and add those additional sections into it, or whether I would take a route of least resistance and add a blanking plate into the nose. Well, I've chosen to do the latter. I'm going to add a splash of colour into there, and I'm going to add a blanking plate. So what that means I'll do is I'll cut a disc of plastic card that'll fit inside there. I'll glue some little tiny tabs into the inside of the intake so that that plate can slot into place and be held in place, and then I'll use part of the nose cone, the front edge of that, glue that onto the disc, and that will replicate the cover of the kind of punched plate that goes right over the top of the nose cone. So I think that'll take about 5 minutes to do, but it'll cover over any problems inside there. While talking about the nose, there are kind of auxiliary intake doors on the nose of a fitter in a similar way to the doors on the Harrier's intake. There are 2 on each side. Oddly, 3 of those fit really well and 1 of them doesn't. This lower one on this nose section here is too small for its opening, and I can't work out whether or not I've sort of cleaned up that opening too much or whether the door is too small. Initially I thought about having those doors drooped away, but because they're curved, they're a curved section within the curved nose, as they droop away they create an opening that's kind of that shape, and what that meant was that I would have to create some kind of actuators to hold them in there. Although there are pins moulded inside those openings, they didn't seem to do a great deal, and I wasn't completely convinced by the fit. So rather than faffing around with those kind of hinges, if you like, for those doors, I just simply close them shut, and that's what I've done. And in a lot of photographs I've seen, those doors do look like they're open, but not on my model. I'm going to keep them closed, and it kind of cleans the line of the nose up. So that's certainly something to look out for. It's only on, like I say, these 2 on this side fit fine. This upper one is fine. It's just this lower one. I'm not quite sure why that one's kind of odd, really. So there we have it. It's a completed airframe. Looking pretty good. Nice size as well. I decided that I would paint this in Ukrainian markings. I kind of like the yellow and blue that they're printed in. So I think that'll look kind of nice on this. The Russian aircraft are rather sombre in terms of colours. I'd sort of thought about a metal one, or silver one, and I gave that some thought, and then I thought, no, I've done like a billion metal aircraft, so it's going to be in camouflage. It's I think a 4-tone scheme with pale blue undersides. So what I've done as part of that is I've started painting some of the other pieces. A piece of card here. These are the wing sections, outer wing sections. You may, if you followed this group of videos, you may remember that I decided that rather than gluing these wings into place when I joined the inner sections together, that I cut a slot into the wings so that they can then be slid into place. They simply push in like that. So those are kind of held in place. That's the wing for the other side, but you get the general kind of gist of how that works. And what that means is that I can paint all of the outer wing sections, both outer wing sections, and the tailplanes. I can paint them separately and then glue them into place, and it saves on a lot of kind of faffy masking around that section, because obviously they sweep and there's going to be odd kind of paint work in there. So I think it's easier to do that. So far I've painted the underside of these wing pieces. The instructions suggest painting them in RLM65, which is this kind of nice pale blue colour. So that's what I've done. I've also painted a number of other pieces as well, including some of the drop tanks. I've got 2 of those. I've decided to paint one in metal and one is going to be in camouflage, this one here. So rather than, to add a bit of variation, rather than painting this tank in RLM65, I've actually painted it in a lighter blue colour, and I've painted it in RLM76, and it contrasts subtly against the underside wing colour, and I think that'll add a little bit of variation to it. I may also paint this tank in a slightly different camouflage colour to the upper camouflage as well, again just to add a bit of variation into that. Both of these sections, the RLM65 sections and this tank, have both been painted in Gunsanyo paint so far. The undersurface colour has been painted in their Mr. Hobby colour, and this tank here is painted in Mr. colour, which is the lacquer version. I've also painted the reconnaissance pod here. Again, I've gone for a bit of variation, so I've painted this in pale grey rather than pale blue, so that'll add another accent underneath there. And the jamming pod, this crazy looking little thing here, this has been painted again in RLM65, and then I will add a camouflage colour over the top of that. Looking at the photographs that I've got of this aircraft, initially I was planning to mask all of the colours out with blue tack and have quite a sharp definition between each of the colours, but it seems that a number of these jets are painted in camouflage. It's got quite a soft kind of edge to it, so I think what I'll do is I'll freehand this. I haven't freehand painted a model for quite a while actually. I don't think I even did it last year. I think everything I masked off, but in this case I'm going to do it freehand, and I'll paint it again with Gunsanyo colours. So that'll mean that hopefully it'll be a relatively quick finish on this. It won't take me ages to kind of individually mask off each of those colours. I'm also going to go for a slightly ragged look with this. They sort of can vary from being quite well kept, quite sort of nasty looking, and quite worn, so I think I'm going to go for a slightly worn version of this aircraft and give it some weathering and make everything kind of stand out. That doesn't mean that I'm going to start painting it in odd colours and odd sort of shades and everything. I'm not going to do any of that nonsense. I'm simply going to use the colours that are suggested, try and get it as close as I can to the way the real aircraft looks in terms of colour, and then weather it back in a similar way to what I did with the P-51 Mustang, that maybe some of you have seen. That was kind of weathered back. So there we are. It's kind of getting there now. Hopefully within the next couple of weeks this thing will be finished. I'm still really enjoying it, I have to say. It hasn't thrown up anything that's done my head in too much. There's nothing where I've just gone, oh come on, what's going on. Everything seems to have gone together relatively well. There are areas on this that have needed to be adjusted and sanded more than I would have done on other aircraft. Certainly it's more work than a Tamiya F-14, but it's no more work than an average Hasegawa kit at the moment. So today's jobs will be to finish sanding the airframe down, and then I can mask off the cockpit. I may well give it a coat of fine surface primer, check all of the joints, and then add all of the individual little parts all over it. There are chaff and flare dispensers on the upper surfaces that need to be added. Then there's like 1,000 vents that seem to be scabbed all over this aircraft. They can be added. All of the wing pylons, it's ready to paint, which I hope to begin sometime next week. So there you go. Hope you've enjoyed this little kind of video and that it rounds up the work so far. As usual with this, you know, if this is the first time you've seen one of the videos on the YouTube channel, check out the other nonsense that's on here. There's plenty of guff that I've created over the last sort of 18 months. There's a little series now on this Sukhoi, so check that out. And if you really like it, subscribe to the channel, and you can keep up to date with this, and also the blog that I try and write, if not every day, every other day, and you can keep up to date with some silliness on there and some discussions that take place on there about building models like this, but also about what I think of the rest of the hobby. So have a great Friday and have a great weekend. I hope whatever you're doing, you enjoy yourselves, take care of each other, and I'll see you again soon. Cheers, bye.